This changes everything for the Edmonton Oilers as NHL insiders reveal the off-season plans to trade for a top-tier goalie. We're going to talk about how much it will take to bring a goalie to Edmonton and how this team will look heading into next season. So you're not going to want to miss this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we dive into everything, we just want to say we're on the road for 17,000 subscribers here before draft day on Friday. So if you're a big Oilers fan or just NHL fan in general, you want to stay up to date on everything going on in a very busy offseason to come, we'll keep you updated here, so make sure you're down below and hit that subscribe button. But with that said, we got some huge Oilers news today, and obviously the big questions surrounding Edmonton after losing at the cusp of winning a Stanley Cup yet again in back-to-back years has been the goaltending. A lot of Oilers fans wanting Stu Skinner out of Edmonton and wanting a top-tier goalie to come in his replacement, and today that's what we're hearing from Elliotte Friedman as he says, I think the biggest question Edmonton is in goal. They'll be looking to the trade market this offseason. This is from his 32 Thoughts podcast, and I think a lot of Oilers fans and just NHL fans in general can agree that the biggest issue in Edmonton is their goaltending at this point. I mean, they got the best player in the world in Connor McDavid, one of the best players in the world in Leon Draisaitl, and they just lose at the cusp of winning the Stanley Cup in back-to-back years. I mean, yes, in Game 6, I mean, scoring was at one goal isn't, giving yourself a fighting chance, but, when the goals start flowing in, it gets the team morale down, and it's even harder to come back. We've seen Edmonton have some great comeback wins in this year's playoffs, but you don't want to be fighting from behind every single game. It just makes it that much harder to go out there and finish your end goal in winning a Stanley Cup. And I think Stan Bowman and the Oilers head office really needs to confront this issue this year, because obviously with McDavid's contract coming up, there's questions in the air if he's even going to stay in Edmonton, which is a blasphemy. I can't believe that. I can't see a world where McDavid isn't an Oiler, but, crazier things have happened. Gretzky went to the Kings. Sorry about that, Oilers fans. But I think if this issue isn't addressed this offseason, I think, Connor Mack has, some big questions to ask front office and ask where their future is headed. And there was one goalie, a great NHL goalie, one of the top in the league, that said he would be interested in joining the Oilers via trade, and that is John Gibson. From David Pagnotta, he said he would be willing to accept a trade to Edmonton. He does have a 10 trade no move clause or no trade clause, so I guess he's willing to waive that to come to Edmonton. Obviously, he sees how special of a team they have, getting to back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals, and I think he thinks he can be that difference maker to get them over the hump and finally hoist the Stanley Cup. And obviously, John Gibson has been stuck in Anaheim his whole career and really hasn't had a fair shake at playoff action. He has been in the playoffs, I believe, 4 times, but I think the longest he went was a 9 wins in one playoffs, and I think he wants, getting older now, that he wants to be a part of that and be a part of playoff hockey. I mean, looking at his contract here, he is on year 7 of an 8-year deal at $6.4 million. That is a lot of money to bring in against the cap for the Edmonton Oilers, but I do think with the right package, they can get them to even, retain $1.4 million in salary here, which, would bring them down to an even $5 million over the next 2 years. Don't think that would increase the trade value too much. Obviously it would a bit, but I think this would be the perfect move, getting him in at $5 million over the next 2 years in your window where you really want to go out and win a championship. I think you do this if you're Stan Bowman and the Oilers. Looking at his stats this season, on a lackluster Anaheim team, he did manage to have a .912 save percentage. This is just how good John Gibson is, and I mean, he's had some crazy records down in Anaheim. One of those being having 3 50 save games in a month. First player to do that since Jacques Plante. So obviously, what quality of goaltender you're getting in John Gibson. He is a clutch goaltender. He comes up with big saves, some highlight reel saves, keeping his teams in games every single night. And obviously doing this on a team like Anaheim where they're in the rebuild yet again. And having those high numbers just shows how good of a quality goaltender he is. We've seen that earlier with Blackwood going to Colorado. I mean, we've seen how good of an impact he had on that team going down to the latter half of this season. This is what we're going to see with John Gibson if he does follow suit and come to the Oilers. And over his career, I mean, he has 24 shutouts. He's been like I said, a staple of the Anaheim Ducks. When you think Ducks, you probably think Ryan Getzlaf and John Gibson. I mean, I think this guy is a tremendous goaltender, and if the Oilers can make the right play to go out and get this guy, they have to. Like I said, he has been in a few playoff games, keeping that .912 save percentage in the playoffs as well, so proving that he can get it done. Yes, having a losing record, but yes, like I said, he is on that Anaheim team that, you know, hasn't had such good success in the playoffs, but just proving that he can get the job done when called upon in the playoffs, and that's what the Edmonton Oilers really do need. They don't need a regular season goalie. We've seen Stuart Skinner. Obviously, he's a hot and cold guy. He can't, once he's hot, and he's one of the best goaltenders in the league, but when he's cold, he's ice cold, and there's lots of pucks going in that probably shouldn't go in. So I think the Edmonton Oilers need to make this trade happen to just get a consistent guy back there. They really do need a guy who's going to be consistent. He's going to come in, night out. You know what you're getting out of him. It's not like you're putting a guy in the net and you're just hoping for the best. With John Gibson, you know what you're going to get night in, night out. Looking at the free cap space going into this offseason, they do only have $10 million in cap right now. They could take on his full contract, but one thing that we do need to keep in mind here is that Evan Bouchard needs that big extension, right? A lot of numbers being tossed out there. 10.5 AAV was one I seen. Don't think he's worth that, and I think if you sign Bouchard to that big of a contract, you're not going to win a Stanley Cup. You need to make some wiggle room work here, whether it's a 2-year, 3-year bridge deal or something like this happen to where they can all try to compete and win a cup. If you go out and pay a guy that much money, it's not going to happen in Edmonton, in my opinion. We've seen it in Toronto. It's been a big failure. One thing I've liked about Edmonton is that they've paid their top 2 guys a lot, and then they've built around that, and they've built a darn good team around that, I must add. And obviously, yes, John Gibson is going to be a little bit older than Stuart Skinner, a little bit more experienced, that veteran presence that's going to come back there and anchor down the cage. So that's what I like. And just talking like initial trades is what I'm seeing in the next draft, the Oilers do have a second-round pick. This is going to have to be tossed into this trade, I think, with a condition of if they win a Stanley Cup or make it to the Stanley Cup final, it upgrades to a first-round pick. I think that is the perfect trade in this scenario. I mean, you have a 2026 second that would upgrade to a 2027 first-round pick if they do win the Stanley Cup or make it to the Stanley Cup final. It only makes sense for Anaheim to have that value and that, hope that this will happen and upgrade to a first round pick. So I like that, but you see this list on your screen. This is a list of the Edmonton Oilers prospects. Going back in the other way, Anaheim obviously in a little bit of a rebuild right now, just shipping out Trevor Zegras to Philly. I think they're just kind of gonna to get rid of House right now and try to really lock into this rebuild. So getting rid of John Gibson is definitely the way to do it. And you see on this list, Matt Savoy, a guy who I think would be the perfect department to go back to the Anaheim Ducks in this trade. Obviously, he's proven to be a good goal scorer and player in the AHL, so getting him on Anaheim where he could get those minutes and get those NHL minutes could really help his development. Any guys on this list, I think, are going to be going back in the other way for this trade. You could see a world where Stuart Skinner does get thrown back in that direction as well. Like I said, he's younger, but I do think this second-round pick is involved. It's either a second-round pick and one of these prospects, or a second-round pick and Stuart Skinner going back in the other way. I think the prospect gets involved if they do retain salary on John Gibson. So it's going to be interesting to see how this trade does play out, and I do really like a world where John Gibson does end up on the Edmonton Oilers. I think he is the perfect goalie for this team going forward, and he's just been consistent in the regular season. He's been consistent in the playoffs, and that's what the Oilers need in the playoffs, is a very consistent goaltender. Before we wrap up, there was another guy that I thought that would fit this Oilers team, and that's Tristan Jarry. He's got 2 years left on his deal, a little bit more affordable at 5 years, $5 million over the next 2 years, just over $5.3 million there. Obviously, he's been a solid goalie, having a bit of a down year. Obviously, the Penguins kind of struggled this year, having an .893 save percentage. The better option is definitely John Gibson here, but if you can't make a deal work with Anaheim, Tristan Jarry is a good plan B. He's been a career .909 save percentage guy, 21 shutouts for this guy, 2 shutouts last season, and I think he is a solid goaltender, and we've seen him get hot at times, and when he's hot, he's one of the best goalies in the league, and that's what I'm thinking here for this scenario for the Edmonton Oilers, is that to go out and get a goalie, that needs to happen. Stuart Skinner has proven to not be able to get it done in the Stanley Cup Finals. He's got you there, yes, and you thank him for that, but at this point in time, you need to go out and get a consistent guy like John Gibson, like Tristan Jarry, that's going to come in and be able to lock it down for you in the playoffs. And I think, yes, shipping Stuart Skinner out here is a good option, because then you still have Picard to back up, but you could also keep him as the backup, because I think he would be a tremendous backup. But it'll be interesting to see what happens here in Edmonton. I want to hear your guys' mock trades for John Gibson down below in the comment section. That's kind of something I came up with on the fly, and a realistic thing that I can really see happening, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you take John Gibson over Stuart Skinner? I think a lot of you guys would. But as always, I've been your host, KC. We'll catch you in the next one.